joining us. This is live on Resilience. I'm joined with the amazing Alhaj, Jordan, and Sasha today. My name is Muna Larigat. I'm the founder of the Grit Makers, and I have amazing resilient souls joining us today to share the resilience stories we're spreading. So, guys, please do introduce yourself and your own personal definition of resilience. Alhaj, can you do us the honor?
Yeah, of course. Thanks a lot, Muna. My name is Alhaj. I'm from Algeria, and an entrepreneur. My background is in computer science, but I have learned business skills along the way and along the years. Right now, I'm working on two, let's just say, main projects. One that is directly related to AI called Bastion AI, which is about making business intelligence more interactive, more intuitive, easier to deploy and use. And the second one is more along the lines of digital marketing. So we help companies build their online presence. And my definition of resilience, I mean, it's a very, very, very wide topic, but I would just pick this one and say that because this is also like one of those hard learned lessons, is that I think the best definition of resilience to me is not letting external expectations or external factors, as in people most of the time, kind of define your journey or define what should be done or what you should be doing at any point of your life, right? And this is really hard because we are kind of conditioned to be, let's just say, to fit in, to be part of something. So I would say that actually let me update it on the fly real quick and say that my definition of resilience is to ultimately be okay with not fitting in anywhere as long as you are following your own, let's just say, journey or path.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That is actually an original one. Nobody has ever mentioned that before. So, Jordan, do you want to go after this?
Sure, it's a hard act to follow there, brother. I gotta be honest, I'm gonna be much more vanilla with my definition of resilience, right? Mine is not really giving up, right? And that goes back to basically short intro on me. Hello, I'm Jordan. I'm a techie through and through. My last business was I was director of intelligence there, and part of that was building an algorithm for a year in my bedroom, not doing anything else, just min-maxing my entire life and just going, hopefully this works. And
Yeah,
it's just about not giving up because most people would. And if you just don't, then you're the only one left. Right. So
exactly.
it's natural selection, man. So, now I'm running Takara with my other co-founders. I'm the chief AI officer and I look after all the machine learning and AI projects come through. We've got some amazing stuff going on right now. I love my job because basically I get to problem solve and do model selection, do all these really cool stuff. And then I have to do more board meetings and that sucks. But that's essentially where I'm at right now. And I would just say, don't give up because back yourself, man. Back yourself big time.
Right.
Well, there's like this meme about meetings and how to shorten them. I don't know if you've seen it, where you have like sales meeting and everyone is doing the plank. And I certainly think
Right.
that all meetings should be run that way.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone's just ripped.
Exactly. Yeah.
How about you, Sasha? Tell us about yourself and your definition of resilience.
Oh, thanks for that. Yeah, we actually have a 15-minute stand up in the morning. It's called 15-minute or plank. So if you go over 15 minutes, you have to plank. So I'm Sasha. Thanks, Jordan. I love people that love their own job. We're creating an AI solution that finds the culture fit for businesses. We believe every pot has its lid. So that's kind of where we come from. The specific side of resilience is never giving up. So being knocked down and standing up. We have our own journey with AI. So I come from a computer programming background, but like way back in COBOL days, and literally hitting the AI scene 4 years ago and having devs who said they could do it and couldn't, and been through several rounds of finding out how not to do it. We finally figured out how to do it. And that was quite a big learning curve of literally time after time having projects that fail and figuring out to keep going on. So for me, resilience is never giving up. That's like Jordan says, you're the final one in the room. So we're still here, and it's finally worked.
It's true, guys. It is, isn't it? Making the entire difference is the consistency, right? and sometimes it beats intensity. And you can just keep on doing the same things, the right things, although there's never really a right or wrong here. It's just keep at it, and eventually the path will lead you to where you need to be. Um, and talking about that, Haj, I know that you are passionate about AI in general.
Mhm.
Eh, you have studied a lot of computer science, and I was very curious about how like the tech and learning about it shaped your own personal resilience.
Mhm. Um, yeah, so I would not say like Jordan that I am a techie through and through, but I do think in technology, in the sense that whatever project I end up working on, the output would always be related to technology in one way, shape, or form. And so I think with technology comes a certain, and that's at least in my experience, comes a certain um, problem solving ability that is hard to replicate in any other, at least in my experience, in any other sector. And also, I think it embeds you and kind of helps you develop a sort of intellectual flexibility that is really required to tackle some of the big and important issues like Jordan was mentioning earlier. So I think, yeah, what I love most and what I enjoyed most about this journey is that being always able to figure out a problem, and I really attribute solution rather, and I really attribute that to the way well, obviously my background, my just educational background, but also how kind of it kind of helped me see things or tackle things in a problem solution sort of approach, right? So everything is figure outable. Everything has a solution as long as you kind of, well, first understand really the problem, really believe in well defined problem, kind of have a battle, and then just working backwards from it and trying to find a solution, not the perfect solution, but a solution, then iterating on it. And all of this is really related to technology, at least in my experience. That's how I learned it. And so I would say that it's I I think the general learnings go way beyond and apply way beyond just technology. It apply in multiple fields and multiple topics. That's I think what was the most enjoyable and helps a lot with being resilient. Right, when you can solve any problem, or at least you know how, uh, for some reason it becomes a bit more easier to basically just face the problem. Right, so.
Yeah, the fact that you know that no matter what, you will figure it out. Like you don't know yet how,
Mhm.
but you are gonna figure that out. And there's an interesting thing because you are currently based in a very interesting market. And sometimes what tech and innovation has shown us is that although the solution is amazing, the market isn't always ready for it.
Mhm.
What did it teach you, and especially like in your own personal development? Having to face that and to witness that.
Um, is that a question for me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, yeah, actually, for example, the just an anecdote, but the first time, my first master's was in artificial intelligence, and that was back in 2013. So I'm kind of dating myself a little bit. But basically, the market I was in and living in, which is Algeria, was not necessarily ready for it in terms of as a specific application of AI back then. A little bit more now. Back then, it was way too early, and so that kind of forced me to develop other skill set that I don't necessarily had at the time, and I kind of was forced to learn on the spot. So it was a lot of learning on the job, just experimenting, trying to catch up, trying to understand things that people seem to be things that were second nature to a lot of people that I was working with. And so that's really a hard lesson, but eventually, that's I think where that sort of mindset that I was mentioning earlier kind of cemented itself. It's like we will eventually get there. It's like when you look back just 2 or 3 years ago, it's like the person you are now would tackle anything that you have faced these last 2 or 3 years, right? And so that sort of level of introspection is also very, I think, important, because that's how you kind of it's like the after every project we do postmortems, that kind of thing. It's the goal is to make sure that whatever we learn, the learnings stay with us even after the project is gone, even after the experience is gone, right? And so yeah, it's I think being okay with the challenge and being okay facing it is really, really half the battle. It's like I'm a bit repeating myself, but I really believe in this one in particular.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing your experience. I think everyone can relate to that, right? Like having that. And when you're a builder, it's definitely something you relate to. Jordan, you're definitely one. You were just telling us before in our prep how much you loved building stuff in your bedroom in the dark. But as a true AI evangelist, tell us a little more about how you and why. What led you to where you're at today?
Okay, interesting. AI evangelist. I'm gonna add that one to my LinkedIn now. That's I'm adding that.
It's
But
a great one.
it's a good one. It's a good one. So why and how is an interesting one, because I had a very unconventional journey because I didn't go to uni, and my A levels, which are like the sort of like college level education you get here in the UK, I didn't do very good at either. Previous school said that I couldn't do computing, so I don't know. I've had a very sort of like, they couldn't tell me I could do it, and then I ended up doing it anyways. And it's just been a systematic sort of steps of, how do I do this? Okay, let's find out. How do I do this? Then let's find out. And it's just, if you add up 1,000 of those, you end up learning something along the way. The hardest bit for me was learning how to be a business owner, not how to do the AI. The AI for me was a lot easier than doing the business part. I'll tell you that much. But yeah, going from learning to code at 14, doing WordPress sites, hate WordPress, don't hit me up. Then going, okay, let's build an algorithm to try and solve this specific problem in the industry, which was B2B sales and marketing leads, which still today is a terrible sea of pain and anguish of buying lists and calling them or trying to do something. Who has a Lusher subscription? Like, that's what it's all about, right? So, and trying to get real value out of that. And then 5 years running that business with a really great team, really solid team, straight from this room here to multi-million-pound valuation, and then closing that and starting to carve my co-founders so that I can take other people on the same journey that I went on, which was super painful because people don't realize like how much is involved with building an AI or ML project, right? So that's really my story from start to finish. And I'm just super passionate about AI, not because of what it can do now, but because of where it's going to go and what it can do in the future, right? 2017, we had Transformers. Transformers comes out and Google makes a better search engine. And then OpenAI gets their hands on it and makes the most amazing natural language processor called ChatGPT. And now everyone's heard of that. And I look at that and go, okay, that's kind of interesting, but it's just text. And then out comes diffusion models, and then comes multimodal. And now we have audio, now we have images, now we have maybe in the future physics. And I'm just seeing the amount of training data that we can suck up massively increase. And so that's what gets me really excited, is because I can see down the line, not what it's doing today, but what businesses and people can do with it 5 years from now, when these models are quite literally the worst they're going to be ever today, and what they're going to be later on. So that's really where my head's at, and I'm just like super excited for everybody else.
Yeah, you can feel that. And I think you're really summarizing that a little what it has as well mentioned at the beginning. Resilience actually is doing what people say you couldn't do. Really. And it's really going against the grain, like what other people have shared. If I was to ask you, like, what is one thing that people are saying is impossible to achieve with AI in the future that you strongly believe is possible, what would that be?
Oh, something that people say is impossible, that many people say is impossible. Many people don't believe that AI could completely replace the entire human function, which is quite a scary thing. But if you think about it, we are modeling AI machine learning off neural networks, which is what our brain is. And if you add the physical side of everything else, it's the same thing.
Mhm.
And it's not a question of if something is possible, it's why you would do that, the cost implications, and how long.
Mhm.
And that's the reality of that situation. Yeah.
Yeah. And there is a lot of tech as well that have been worked on for a while, and that we still see. I think which a lot of like Boston Consulting Group, like robotic advancements.
Oh, like Boston Dynamics.
Yeah, Boston Dynamics. And
Yes.
actually, that's like always amazed me. And they've been around for so long. Like these videos are so old.
Yeah.
But the moment where you can actually make it affordable to everyone to be able to use it on a very regular basis is like quite a jump.
Oh, it's quite a jump. It's the cost. It's like you have to build the robot and you have to have a training environment, and that training environment has to be general enough so the robot can learn to many environments. Or actually, the biggest innovation in this space is in the gaming industry, because it's like, okay, now we can just make a virtual robot in a virtual environment. Let's say someone's house. We can synthetically generate 1 million houses and then have a robot go around the house and go, right, I'm going to put the clothes away, or I'm going to do the washing up
Yeah.
in like 1 million houses, and do a virtual one. And then you translate that learned knowledge to the robot, and then maybe do some final validation and tests and stuff like that. And that's
Mhm.
going to be a huge innovation, because that drastically lowers the cost of building and training those robots, that's the problem, right? That's the problem.
That's a good thing, and we'll definitely circle back to it because I have more in store. But Sasha, it's always an inspiration for me. Obviously, I'm not biased at all on this, but having a female entrepreneur on the panel, sorry guys,
Fine.
at least we
That's
made
great.
it. Like quite frequently, I've realized they're just like we're 4 females there, and I'm like, shit, what did I do? Thanks. But Sasha, you did scale your business over the last 5 years. You've been like testing, learning, iterating, and the guys know as well what it is like. What were the lessons AI has taught you through this entrepreneurial journey?
Sure. Actually, Jordan, I think you need to change your resilience definition to what people don't think you can do, and proving them wrong. And I think that resilience, being a female in the IT industry, there's few of us that are here. AI has definitely taught me, and I explained the story I had, is we used a range of different developers to build our AI, and everyone said they could and they couldn't. The results they could, it just never matched correctly. So you can, I think, be very wary of out there. There's lots of people who say they can build you an AI, use LLM, use machine learning. They can throw all the very cool buzzwords to you. But when the product doesn't work, in the sense of it doesn't do what it's supposed to do by 100% or by 98% or however close you need to get, you learn very quickly of, I think it's like the .com boom, where everybody could create a website. Everyone could sell e-commerce really fast on a website, and few couldn't. And we learned out very long along the line, that's why there was .com boom at the end, of who actually got it right and who got it wrong. And I think we're going to figure that out. I think there's still, I don't know, hundreds of AI apps coming out a day. I don't think I'll watch anymore, so I don't know how many come out currently. But of how many of them are not AI and how many of them are just automation, they're just code. So I think it's the resilience of knowing, and I think for everybody in business, you need to understand what real AI is. When does it actually equate to AI? And it's that resilience of you're never going to know without learning. There's thousands of YouTube videos, we've got TEDx talks, you've got so much content which you can get for free to figure that all out. And AI definitely gives you that resilience that if you don't catch up, you're going to be left behind. So you need to be able to know. So from a business and entrepreneur point of view, you need to know where is the line of AI and where isn't it. So I think AI has definitely taught me, with all of those people who could do it and couldn't, it's taught us a resilience. And like I said, never give up. And we just went to the next one, the next one, and the next one. As entrepreneurs, we have to fail fast. So figure it out, make sure you learn from it so you don't repeat the same lesson, and keep going. So I think for entrepreneurs, it's definitely the resilience training is fail fast, get up, learn from the lesson and move on. So AI has definitely taught us that. We've had a journey with AI. And even from a programming background, I didn't know enough in the beginning, and had to definitely skill myself up to know exactly what other people were talking about and using big buzzwords.
Yes, it's always the having like a little translation bot, or you can ask AI to give you an answer. And I'm assuming that it was also the same, like for any type of business, having like to really learn and progress, like when you want to grow consistently, right? It has been to know when you needed to pivot, know when you needed to be patient, and know when you needed to kill an idea and move on.
Yeah.
Um,
I think entrepreneurs, we need to know that all the time. And I think it's so difficult to figure out which one you're in.
was there like one big lesson that stood out the most for you?
Oh, entrepreneurship journey is such a journey. There's so many lessons, I think, almost daily, that if you don't learn them, I think they come back to haunt you. And I think you don't learn it until it hits you on the head a couple times, until you figure it out. So I don't think there was one big lesson in that. We did our due diligence every single time, and as much as we did it, it still didn't work. So I don't know if I'm about to find out if we've ever learned the lesson properly, but our AI is now functional. It's now close to where we need it to be. So I think maybe it's the resilience part of don't give up. Like, there is an answer out there. I think, Jordan, you were talking about like finding the solution. Just keep going and finding the solution to the problem. And the problem might change, and sometimes the answer is the same, and sometimes the question's different. And it's figuring out which one it is. So, like your 3 examples, do you stay on the path and keep going? Do you cut it off and keep going, and figure out a new path or pivot? And I think as entrepreneurs, we've always got those 3 balls running in the air, and it's almost like a spin dial. Which one do you going to choose this time?
Yeah. And I think it's interesting as well that you point out that sometimes you have like to go through it again and again to get the lesson. I think it's something we probably know in our personal lives, with relationships, with boundaries, in general. But it works as well for business. Sometimes it's hard to let your baby go when you have like this idea that adds up on the shelf of ideas, and they all sound super exciting, and you want to run with them all. But it's hard to park it and tell it not yet, or that's it, you're done. Um, and thank you guys for sharing bits of your stories. I want to take some time to reflect on that and reflect on the resilience part, but most importantly, the idea that resilience come hand in hand with a process that is sustainable. Humanly, when you build your resilience, is just you allowing yourself to be able to grow and expand, so you can like take on these lessons and challenges again and again, not crash down and just lose everything or burn out and then be in hospital for a little while. So when we look at AI projects implementations, or like big tech projects implementation, or like when you're considering, okay, if in your business you don't have AI yet, but you're starting thinking about what it would take to make that project sustainable in the long run, what would you think are the 3 main components to bring to that project? And this is a question to all of you guys. Can take a deep breath, and then the first one to raise their hand have to go. Otherwise, I'm going to pick on you.
I don't mind going.
Obviously.
Look at you. He didn't go to uni, but now he's at the front row seat.
I know. Well, I've done. That's our business, so I have to go first. 'Cause,
Yeah, he has to. He has
I
to.
have to go. I have to go first. That's exactly what we do, right? So, like, I would say top 3 things you have to have is, first of all, you got to have a decent use case, because there's a lot of AI gimmicks around here. Okay, don't create the new AI calendar app. Google and Microsoft are going to kill you if they just add AI to their own calendar, because that's where all the customers are. So have a good use case with good ROI. Think about data governance and the security of your AI, right? Like, number one reason most legal teams and companies right now say nope is because it's very difficult to guardrail Gen AI projects, especially with large language models and diffusion models, etc. Because lawyers go, "What do you mean you can't guarantee the results of something when it comes out of the model?" And you're like, "Well, it's a guesstimation engine," and they're like, "What do you mean?" So yeah, so there's the security of that. And then obviously the scalability as well. You know, how well does it scale once you build that? And they're the three main things that I usually focus on. There's obviously lots of other stuff, but making sure it can scale, having a great use case, and making sure that it's really secure is other things that I think are very important.
Yeah, cool. So I'll go next. I would add on to that is, so from my project management background, is have a plan. I've learned my developer thing, so have the right team in place if you're not going to be able to make it sustainable. So, for example, one of our AI companies we use, their CEO passed away midway of our project, and the whole team broke up. So have a good team that there's a plan B, and to make it specifically sustainable, there's obviously most things go onto a cloud. Pick your cloud carefully, because if you're using proprietary AI models from them and you want to move away from one of the big ones and you want to move independent, you're going to struggle. So if you're going to make the things sustainable, make sure that whatever you use is your own IP and not somebody else's that you then can't move away from them.
It's good advice.
Yeah. And I think it really allows you to look at, you can't predict everything. Therefore, you can still plan some time for the unpredictable, even if you don't know what it is. But I always carve that time, in the calendar as well, just having some time for if shit happens.
Yeah.
I have like that buffer. I'm not back to back, not breathing the whole freaking day. And how about you, Haj? Like the three main magical ingredients for you?
Well, honestly, it's gonna be hard to find three different ones from Jordan and Sasha. So I think double down on it, and I wholeheartedly agree. I think, yeah, but I would maybe highlight. I think the one that maybe that would relate most to me based on the current stages of the project that I'm working on, which is having the use case, right? Because as Jordan was mentioning earlier, a lot of people would jump on the AI train, right? So they want to, it's their solution technology driven first, as in let's have AI and then we figure out the use case, which is the worst way to do any project, in my opinion. You're better off not doing AI if it doesn't fit you, because it's gonna cost you more. So I was like I was saying earlier, just spend some time defining the problem, defining the use case, what are you exactly going to achieve, and then pinpoint how AI, generative AI in particular, is going to help you, right? Is it really well suited to the specific problem, to the area? And then just if it's a clear yes, then of course proceed to the next steps and to require gathering requirements, that sort of thing. But initially I would spend a lot of time just trying to understand, really, like, do we need to have AI? Just because everyone else is doing it, we don't have to necessarily, if there isn't a clear upside, right? Immediately visible upside. So I would say that one in particular, on top of the other ones, right? Infrastructure, security issues, just having the right team is really important. All of these are really, really critical. But I would say that the first one that I think everything else is built on top of is the use case, like a really good use case.
Agreed.
Can change, right? We can pivot, we can be flexible, but it has to be rooted into a really specific issue.
Actually, I think we missed one, and that's money. I don't think people
Oh
realize
yeah.
how
Obviously.
AI processing is. Like, it's not like running a website. It's nothing like that. The processing power and the money you need behind it is very different. So I think money might be the second one of the use case.
Yeah.
That's actually an interesting point. I've had a conversation recently about sustainability when it came to AI, and how you can, and by sustainability, I'm not talking just about like a process, I'm talking about environment and you can make sure that it takes a lot of energy um, to run this. Is this something that you came across in in the conversations that you've had? Is it something that you're already starting to think about? How can it be more efficient so it impacts the environment a little less? How does it look like?
Well, from our side, it's no different than just making something more efficient in general, for compute, right? Inference optimization is so important for AI and ML because training costs can be whatever, but the inference cost of an AI model will drastically exceed its training cost. So when people post, it took how many GPUs and X amount of carbon to do training, I'm like, I don't really care, because once you get 1 million people on that, it's going to be way, way higher. So anything we can do, great companies like Grok and Cerebrum, I think I'm in my head here, are making some really great accelerators. We're seeing the industry get a lot better at this. And as well, there's some really great processes and tools coming out now to quantize models and prune them down and get them more laser focused and more efficient in that space. And that's just part of what we do with things that we build. But I think as well, having that idea in the back of your head, about sustainability and going, I could put this model out there and it would run, and the customer has enough money to run this, but I'm going to take the extra mile and just say, look, we could save a bunch of energy and a bunch of power if we do a little bit extra pruning, a little bit extra optimization on this. I think it would be something that would be valuable, because these things in the end goal will save human horsepower quite often, which produces far more carbon than machines do. That's for sure. So anything we can do to make that better, I think is a good thing.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think it's still the second option, where people are still focused on the AI and getting the models working, and the green side hasn't come in enough yet. It's still definitely on the cards, specifically when you do investment, and investors generally do ask. So it is there, it's just not forefront at the moment.
Yeah, I think, and to kind of add on top of that, I think this early in the life cycle of LLMs in particular, I think it's optimization might not be at the foremost of the focus of a lot of these companies, because a lot of these models could actually get smaller and still achieve a good amount of result if the training data sets and stuff like that can be adjusted upfront. So right now the focus is, as was mentioned earlier, on making things work efficiently at scale, and then kind of optimizing and hopefully having that sort of positive impact on the environment, and also just in consumption of energy, and the general need for data, right? Because that's also another really important topic. I think a lot of the pushback against AI, which is real, comes also from the feeling for in a lot of places that there's sort of usurpation of work or identity, or even quality of deliverable, as in AI is basically stealing someone else's work, which is, I think, something that would need to be addressed sooner rather than later. I mean, it's already is kind of forced, right? Lawsuits are forcing the issue, but I think it should be addressed upfront, right? On during the process of training these models and kind of figuring out how to make them most efficient without necessarily, scraping up like millions of terabytes of data. I think that would also play a good role into how efficient the inference later on would be.
Mm.
Yeah, agreed.
It's funny because I was mentioning to you guys earlier, I did run the topic of our episode in an AI tool to kind of like get what were the points that AI would tell us how AI makes us more resilient. And one of them was that by taking away some tasks, some tedious tasks from humans, that would allow us more brain space to do more important ones, more meaningful tasks. And I think that goes along the side of, oh, all our jobs are going to be taken away, kind of scare. And I'm letting on my own opinion, biased opinion here by my reaction or how I present it, of course. but it's really addressing that thing. We have so many different resources out there, and someone in the chat mentioned that too big to fail is a reality. Diversification of resources is paramount to ensuring resilience and success. That's because I know Amity runs a resilience company, and
Wow.
supports,
Okay.
supports startups with having the right resilience process, so they don't hit this governance like issues and stuff like that. And it's important to not put your eggs in the same basket.
Mhm.
But what of the resources we have? We have the tech resources, we have the human resources, and then within that, there are so many other like clusters that we can develop differently to be resilient and sustainable differently. So I know there's a doom and gloom that we talk a lot about, but what makes you the most optimistic about AI at the moment? Come on, guys, some joy, more energy, something happy. Give me happy.
I think that's Jordan, obviously. He's gonna come up with something amazing. Yeah, just watch. Yeah.
Okay, here goes. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a
Great.
technology that's come out, and people are thinking about the security and governance of it from the beginning.
Wow. Amazing.
That nobody's done that before. When the internet came out, everyone was like, "Oh, look at this thing."
Hmm.
When LLMs came out and everyone suddenly got their hands on it, it was like, okay, what's this going to do? I'm kind of afraid of it. Now we need to do all these auditings, all this security stuff, all these things. So, while
Hmm.
people are thinking, oh, dude, it's going to, kill us all and power the Terminator, it's like one of the only technologies that I can think of where people genuinely consider the security, governance, and how this thing is used
Hmm.
from the inflection point, and it's kind of industry wide. But all the researchers, they don't want to create the killbot,
Hmm.
right?
Or
And that
do
has
they?
well,
I
no,
mean,
but
yeah. I mean, it's hard to have dead customers, right? So.
it is. But when Mark Zuckerberg was creating Facebook, that wasn't a consideration. He didn't think
Mhm.
that Facebook would be used for misinformation.
No.
Didn't even consider it. Wasn't even a thing that he thought about. And to be fair, I don't really know if he thinks about it today either.
Mhm.
But all I hear about all the time is OpenAI does this. This is our model card. This is how we do security and audit. This is how we do this thing. People going, I need more of this. I need more of this. So that's the one thing that makes me super optimistic about AI, is that we have a fundamental different approach to it because we understand how potentially powerful it could be.
Mhm.
And we want to make sure that's done in the right way. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Sorry, for when you were saying that how many jobs it's going to take away. So from being in the recruitment industry, a couple of years ago we didn't have a social media manager role. It didn't exist, and it now
Mhm.
does. And it's the same thing now. We're seeing ML ops positions, machine learning positions, more data roles. So as much as, yes, some jobs will probably become a bit of obsolete, there are so many more jobs being created. We have an entrepreneurial mind shift where we all go, what if it doesn't work? And entrepreneurs go, but what if it does? And that's pretty much how AI, it's exciting. Like, what if it does work? I know everyone's looking at all the bad stuff and what ifs, but what if it works? What if it solves? If you look at the specifically in the biotech and medtech space, the solving of and the testing, how faster they can do it to solve epilepsy or Alzheimer's or cancer, the leaps and bounds of what if it works is so much more exciting than what if it
Yeah.
doesn't.
That's nice. I like that.
No. And yeah, just to kind of add on to that, I think so. Personally, when you read my LinkedIn tagline, you would find generalist at the end of it, and I did that and do that on purpose because I do define myself as a journalist, which means someone who has multiple interests in different fields, at least some different skills, depending on how we view things. But the idea is, I think humans, us people, are inherently good at connecting the dots and at seeing connections between things that are not obviously related, which is for now something AI is not good at. AI is rather really good at specific tasks, repetitive and specific tasks at scale. So I think the combination of both of what we call sort of the AI augmentation process. So basically taking what people do and then augmenting it with AI. I think that's the potential that is being unlocked by that is still like at its very beginning, and I think the because I think that's at least for the next few years, maybe decades. I think that's where AI will show most of its value, because taking what is already being done and then allowing people to, as you were saying earlier, Muna, to kind of focus on maybe higher value sort of task and higher value work, and then dedicate and delegate the maybe the more repetitive, on even the stuff that requires the legwork to AI. I think that will, this sort of process, when it becomes more kind of ingrained and kind of more standardized, I think it will unlock a lot of value that we cannot see at the moment by definition, right? We see the value of AI, right? When you use Claude, when you use ChatGPT, you can immediately see the difference, right? I think no one will ever start from a blank page anymore, ever, anything, any project, whether it's code or writing or videos or whatever. But I think deeper combination of this and proper AI augmentation, I think it's the immediate next step prior to what we call AI general intelligence, which is, I think, still a few ways away. So yeah, I think it's very exciting. I'm really looking forward to see what would be possible. Even the weird stuff that we were talking about earlier, I think that would be just worth the worth the entry ticket, honestly.
I think everything is worth an entry ticket. You need
Yes.
to try it before you
Yeah.
try it before you just it. And I think it's super interesting, and I know that you guys are all very passionate about this topic. Obviously, it's the title of the session, but the session is also a lot about entrepreneurship and your personal journeys. Um, and I think it's nice to go down memory lane, remember how you started, remember all these like moments. I know it's hard to pin down like the biggest lessons because there are so many. But if there was one defining moment in your journey, like that moment that was that switch, the beginning of the rest of your life type of moment, what would that be and why?
It's quite a small question.
Yeah, no kidding.
Mhm.
Well, you can ask AI to help you, but
Right.
when you're your type.
But yeah, but like, we will all have the same answer, though, right? That's
Not
yeah.
really. We did a test with a friend. I think I mentioned it to Jordan once, and we were asking onboard the app on our phone, like we asked AI to give itself a nickname. And at first, it gave the same answer, which I don't remember. Don't ask me. And then we both prompted AI to be like, "This is the same that you gave my friend who asked you the same question. I want a different ones." And slowly, you go through that process, and it refined for us two different nicknames that we could call our
Nice.
AI assistant. So I think one thing when it comes to AI and resilience that this had taught me was that it's not necessarily going to give you the answer. It's going to take you through the process. It's going to help support you going through that process. And I think it's as helpful as doing that task for you. It's alleviating like that resource to make things easier and help you learn things differently. Even learning how to prompt. It's been super useful
Yeah.
for like goal setting because you're learning how to describe things
Mhm.
in a different way. So yeah, that was a pivotal moment for me using ChatGPT. When I realized that I've written two books without
Nice.
using it, without using AI, not even for the structure.
Wow.
That's because of Big Magic, the creative genius coming to visit. But I will use it when it comes to editing.
Mhm. Yeah.
Definitely.
So, guys, big pivotal moment for you.
I'll go first. I think my earliest was when I started programming, when I realized how very cool computers can be and the ability you could to change your world. You know, I remember learning the first is I think you say hello world and you make the computer do it when you press a button, like the very basics of programming. And when you realize that of what and how much it could do and of how it kind of for anybody who has never programmed, you get into a flow, you get into your it's like hours can go by and you didn't even know.
Mhm.
It's realizing of how much and how awesome this is going to be. And I think that was definitely my pivotal moment. I had done lots of things before as when I was younger. I was the same. I didn't originally go to university. I went to university a lot later, and I put myself through while I worked. But figuring out all the other careers I had done, that definitely programming was going to always be part of it.
I guess yeah, I'll go second. So I think honestly it's kind of hard to pinpoint one pivotal moment because I think there are many of them. The first one could have been, yeah, just like Sasha was mentioning, just the first time I interacted with the computer, right? I just know. I mean, I think my first hour I was like, I want to work with this my entire life, right? I want to be around computers forever. That's something that I knew very early on. I didn't know what it would look like. Obviously, I didn't have any idea, and it was still like uh, IT in the general sense. Technology was not as it is today. No, no social networks, no nothing. Again, dating myself a little bit there, but yeah, I just realized that I would love to just be around computers, and I would do what it takes to do that, right? Without really knowing where. But I think maybe the latest pivotal moment was when that was like, I think during COVID, more or less. I was living in the US, and I was like, yeah, now maybe it's a good signal if I needed anything more anything more to. I was like, yeah, just give it a try, just work on your own thing, see how it happens, and then you will first learn a lot, if anything else, and then you could go back to your previous path. And if not, you may just even unlock new things, right? I think that period where a lot of things that we took for granted were kind of changed, and kind of have to, yeah, just question a bit everything. I was like, yeah, maybe now is a good time for getting into that flow, and since then I haven't really looked back. I was like, now I know more or less what I want to do the rest of my life. Just work on my own stuff, the things that really energize me, right? Try to kind of have my own vision, and just learn, also continuously learn, right? That would be the last one, the last one. I think just being open to learning is a huge one, right? Because sometimes it's hard to feel like you need to learn, right? The more you advance in life, the more you're like, come on, I'm just, I've done too much. There's like, how much more learning do I have to do, right? But then it's you always learn something new. You always like pick up something new if you open your mind to it. It really starts within, and then once you're there, it becomes just much easier. I really believe that, without going into a tangent, I really believe that most of the breakthroughs come from it, from just being open to that breakthrough, right? Even if it's not there at the moment, being to it makes it happen much more frequently, much easier than what we may feel. So yeah.
That's great. Honestly, I also have a voracious appetite for learning. My major pivotal moment was the point where my learning was pretty slow, and then I built my server rack, and then my learning went very, very, very quickly. I don't know if you could be romantic about a server rack, but I'm gonna try. Because I love that thing so much. It's been such a pivotal part of my life, and it's sat in the corner of my room for years, and it has allowed me to be where I am today. I've got 2 giant servers in there and a network switch, and basically it's just been my sandbox. It allows me to do anything and learn anything and run anything I like. Thank you so much. So that was my pivotal moment, right? I've got some huge amount of horsepower in there, and it keeps my room warm in the winter. It's got a nice
Energy saving.
Yeah, it's becoming an issue. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's my pivotal moment. Building those, putting that together, and then being able to run models, store as much data as I liked, fail fast on certain projects, be able to preview things on there before I put them into cloud, before I knew how to put stuff in the cloud before, and didn't want to rack up some insane charge. So all those things I think were really important for me, and that's why I'd say that.
Yeah, but it's very powerful. It seems like it's always stemmed from going through something that helped you to learn and develop yourself.
Hmm.
Um, gosh, like when you were talking about like meeting your first computer experience, like for me, there was already like emails and stuff. And I remember like we had classes to learn how to set up an email. Sorry, that
Yeah,
was like a tangent. I'm like, they don't do these anymore.
yeah.
Um, it's I think like that pivotal moment as well, where you mentioned like, when you go to a traditional like background, you go to uni or even just to school or anything like that. I remember having that moment in my life before transformation and change where I just like was fuck it, let's change career, let's change people's life and focus on this and blah 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 blah, the breakthrough. I did remember that I have that moment where I was sat there and thinking, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I have the energy to learn all these stuff and learn anything new. And I was very much sitting in that fixed mindset. And I can really remember vividly that old version of me that was sitting there feeling that way, thinking that way. And I'm just like, wow, that's like fast forward 3, 4 years later is completely different. But you have that moment where you have to embrace it, where you have to embrace change and transformation. And when you utilize that to power and superpower like your progress, you can go much further. Um, Someone in the chat has mentioned, I'm discovering the same time as I'm reading, with the rapid rate of growth and development in tech and AI, how do you uptake these lessons quickly and apply them practically?
Mhm.
I imagine that Amity is really emphasizing practically.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a good point. Theory is everything.
Mhm.
But doing something in real life is a lot more difficult.
Mhm.
I make a conscious effort to read 1 or 2 research papers a day. Go on Hugging Face and go on Daily Papers, and you can see some of the top ones that are coming out. You can choose what your favorite ones are. Usually there's something really strange or weird. And then it's about picking and translating some of that. Oh, that's kind of cool. I see how that would translate to
Mhm.
this problem, but in a practical way, right? Does this innovation actually translate into a real world problem? And I think it's just having that reasoning ability to go, yes, this model technically on human eval is like slightly better, but if it's only like 2% better, there's no point me using that brand new cutting edge model when there's one that's perfectly good enough. So it's
Mhm.
just about having that reasoning to pick and choose what innovations are genuinely good enough to rip everything up and put something new in,
Mhm.
and also having that reasoning knowledge to be able to translate some of the amazing stuff that's coming out in the industry to the problems that your clients might have, you might have, your friend might have, whatever that might be.
So is it kind of like you're saying just don't go after any new shiny thing?
Mhm.
Yeah,
No.
don't trace don't chase the dragon, right? If someone says, oh, you don't have the latest iPhone, you obviously don't like phones.
Right.
It's like it's not like that. You don't have to have
Mhm.
the brand new shiny thing. If it works and it's generating value,
Mhm.
Go for it.
like
Yeah, I think it's got to do with what we've been talking about. So use case, if it's not going to help you, use case, don't bother. Money, if you don't have it, you won't be able to use it. And then fail fast. If you are going to use it, test it. It can be on a smaller LLM. It doesn't have to be on the largest one, and go. But I think those three are definitely going to be of how you keep up to date. And yes, definitely keep up to date, but you don't need to use everything that comes out. You can't. There's too much
Yeah,
coming out too fast.
exactly. Yeah, and yeah, because especially if the improvement is just purely like uh, small and incremental, like it's not gonna make a very big difference. Uh, the newest model will not make or break your product. That's your product doing that by itself, right? So the new model will just take you from 2% to 5%. Then yeah, it's not definitely not worth it. And yeah, I would also just second the fact that experimenting, testing things really quickly, finding a way to run experiments. If it's depending on the context, it might be tricky. Like if it's a big company and it has its own sort of roadmap and focus, so it can be hard. But like just find a way to experiment, even locally, even with small things, see how things operate, understand them, and then understand whether they fit or not. But at least you have that knowledge, right? Gaining that sort of practical experience is in and of itself worth the try, right? It doesn't have to work exactly as intended, but at least by doing that, you know what road you shouldn't walk, and that's already like knowledge in and of itself.
Mm.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. So, because I'm thinking as the same way you're looking at the practicality of things and you're looking at like failing fast, testing and learning as quickly as possible, and also making that informed decision that something is not necessarily the new shiny thing that you need. In your experience, especially when you talk to people in general, I'm not necessarily just about selling your product, right? But like even like talking to your friends about how they can simplify their lives,
Mhm.
and as much as companies, prospects, clients, you can be challenged, right? And
Mhm.
especially when it comes to something new, you have like people who don't necessarily have the right level of education in that space.
Mhm.
What is the biggest objection that you come across when it comes to AI or tech? And how do you turn it into an opportunity, actually? The biggest objection that you come across and how you turn it around.
So I think I'll start where what we did is when we launched before ChatGPT, and demonstration to clients. We always got, I'm not into AI, it's not my thing, and used another service that was a pure human service, not an AI. When ChatGPT was launched, suddenly everybody was like, "Oh, AI is cool, let me try it." So ChatGPT has definitely helped us overcome the objections, and that definitely opened up a big doorway for, I think, a lot of AI companies, which definitely helped bring that to the real world and make it like you said, everyone's used it at some point in their life, and I think that's definitely helped us. I think for objections is everyone is using it in some way or form, and people are now willing to at least try it out. So our objection, actually, thanks to ChatGPT.
Yeah, I'd say a lot of our opportunities would not exist without ChatGPT as well. Without a CEO going, "Wow, this is pretty cool."
Mhm. Yeah.
Like it's doing basically all the selling for us. So thanks OpenAI for spending billions
Yeah.
so that
Yeah.
we can make a
Doing it.
few £100. No.
Yeah.
I'd say that the biggest objection that we get from clients is like, there's one that's like, "Oh, I don't think AI can do that," and I'm like, "You don't realize that you're already using AI, right?" Like when people complained about the new Google generative AI search, which was terrible because it was telling people to eat rocks. Not a good diet. Don't recommend it. But they don't realize that they were using BERT, which is the original search engine, which Google is AI already. It's just trained off
Mhm.
Wikipedia articles and not the entire web. Also, like in your phone, classification of images. So whenever I get those things, I'm like, look, you've been using AI your entire life. You just don't realize it. The only difference is now is that you can apply it to your use case.
Yeah.
And it's democratized, right, to a level that you can. Before, it was banks, fraud, supercomputers for weather. It's
Recommenders,
become,
right?
yeah, no,
When
that's
when
it.
you go on YouTube, yeah, when you go on YouTube and you find exactly the right videos for you, seemingly
Yeah,
out of
yeah.
magic, right? That's AI already, right?
That's
I mean, it
AI,
has been
man.
around for years. Yeah.
And suddenly people go, "Oh, really? So all the really cool things and all the stuff that makes my life easy comes from AI and machine learning."
Yeah. Yeah.
But the only difference is now is I don't have to spend millions training those
Millions. Yeah.
models. I can spend a couple hundred, maybe a few grand or something maximum to train a small
Mhm.
model to do a very niche thing.
Mhm.
Worst case scenario, you spend, thousands of thousands, but we're not talking big models here anymore. And now with the big AI companies putting out these LLMs, fine tuning's way cheaper. So it's the democratization of it and just telling people that really it's pretty powerful and you should do it
Mhm.
today.
And yeah, I think the other one that often comes up, especially when you work with B2B customers, is data and security and how secure my data is. Because whenever you ask them for that document, which is basically what we do in our product, because it's a RAG solution. It's basically it takes your data and then it basically helps you talk to it. And so any sort of use case that uses that will generate those sort of feedback, and we're like, okay, so maybe we do it on premise, so maybe we host the thing at your on your service. And they're like, oh, but we don't necessarily have like our internal data centers, whatever. And I'm like, okay, so maybe you can trust us to take care of that, and then we can just work with you to ensure that your data obviously is always accessible to you only. We don't see it, we're not supposed to see it, and then also you can remove it anytime you want, etc., etc. So it's like, for those who can have it on premise, then we can find a way to do it, if that helps the customer feel more secure. But those who can't, it's an actual, especially when they see, as was mentioned, the value that is being extracted by others, by competitors, then the selling becomes a bit easier when they see yeah, it's like when fear of missing out, honestly, it's both a blessing and a curse, right? It does a lot of the door opening for you, but yeah, you just have to keep it in check. But yeah, I think that's data security, which is very legitimate, by the way. It's a very legitimate thing. Even when using Claude and ChatGPT, that's something that's, as a reflex, we should always have to understand, where is my data, like, can I get it back, can I delete it, can I remove it? And yeah, that's also, I think it forces us, as Jordan was mentioning earlier, it forces us to embed security and privacy and those kind of things from the get-go, right? Because we know when it comes to LLMs and how powerful they are, those questions will come to. It's not if, it's like they will. So might as well just invest a little bit more time up front, and then be ready when you go to market, when you talk to customers about it, right? Instead of having to catch up and having to half bake a security thing into it, might as well just do it properly up front. So I think that's honestly that's a really a good and important thing to have, as it's a good, I think it's a good pushback, because it forces you to just make better things, simply.
I agree. Nice.
And I just want to remind the audience, the resilient audience that we have, that they can pop their questions in the chat. I've been addressing them already as we go, but if anyone was waiting for a little prompt to be ready to drop something, please do make sure that you drop your comment in the chat. I'm also monitoring the messages briefly, so just make sure that you pop them. And if by any chance you miss it, don't worry, we will reply to the comments afterwards. To continue on this trend, because it was a very interesting point. At some point, you talked about this test and learn phase, and I think, Sasha, you did mention a lot of time, like, sometimes things don't work, and it teach you loads of stuff. So it's all well when it delivers, but when it doesn't, how do you manage these moments? And I'm really saying that, how do you manage these moments, not only from a business standpoint, but from an entrepreneur standpoint? How do you keep going?
So I think after you've sworn a lot, I have a secret, and it's called step out, step back. So when you're up against the wall and you are just no idea where to go next, take a blank piece of paper, not a lined piece of paper, a blank piece of paper, a pen, leave the laptop, leave the cell phone, go outside and just sit and figure out what the solution is. We always try and figure out the solution while we're working, while we're on a phone, while we're on a call, and you never get to the right answer. And it often happens that either you're in the shower or you dreamt about it or whatever it is. It's because you got away from the tech and because you got away from sitting in front of the problem. And we often forget as entrepreneurs that we need to work on the business, not in the business. So if you get away from the tech, as much as I love it, and take a blank piece of paper and a pen, you'll be very surprised how often you come up with a solution. So I highly suggest that for any entrepreneurs, and that's the best way to do it.
Yeah,
I'm going to do that.
It really works, and it's so silly. It's just get away from it. Get away from just, and you've got the answer. It's in your head. A solution, something you can try. It's in your head.
And I think just slowing down and going, let me just think about this for a second. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And yeah, I mean, we were talking with Muna in the pre-show about it a little bit, but basically, it's also about that thing where when you're facing a challenge, sometimes it's just okay to be stuck, right, for a while, and yeah, just step back, take a little bit of a breather, work on something else. Actually, your brain is still working on it. It's just in in the back end, right? It's a background process to use a very techie expression. It's still running. It's just not at the it's not in your frontal cortex, so it's not right now happening, but it's still happening. And so when you work on something else, you will wake up one day, 2 days later, and be like, yeah, of course. I mean, I should try that. It happened to me. So instead of just forcing through, which actually hurts more than anything.
Yeah.
And that goes for a lot of things, whether it's burnout or tiredness, psychological, physical. Sometimes it's just okay to just take a step back, be be all right with being stuck, and then let it happen. Let it just leave as well, and then just go back on the horse and try again. So usually I think it solves 95% of issues. Sometimes it requires a little bit more persistence, but it's like a lot of the issues that seem unsurmountable at the moment can get fixed with just a good night's sleep, actually. To use a very to use some very to common wisdom. It's actually really true, and it's a very efficient. Just take a step back, work on something else entirely, just forget about it for a while, and then come back to it. It will sometimes the answer will just pop up right away.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think being a entrepreneur is knowing where your gaps are and knowing people that can fill those gaps when you need them to, right? When you run into issues and you're like, I just haven't lived on this earth long enough to know this information right now. I need to phone a friend.
Mhm.
And being able to just like take a step back and go, I'm not going to have ego in this moment right now, and I'm going to reach out and go, hey, I have this problem on this model, it's not performing well, I have a KPI, it's got to meet this KPI or the project's dead. How would you do this? Just give me your 2 cents. And quite oftentimes they tell you some like amazing shit and you're like, oh my god, why didn't I think of that? And then off you go. So for me, like, people have helped me massively, and it's very hard to let go of things because it's your baby. It's like, I want to have a look, I want to hold on to all this stuff, don't touch it. And being able to just go, hey, could you help me out, I think is just super
Mhm.
valuable.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is super valuable. I think you guys are actually the first group that shares so much about mindfulness without putting out the buzzwords.
I don't know them actually. I don't know which one they are. I actively avoid them in any like content I consume, whatever. So now I don't even know what the current buzzwords are. So I'm
We can
safe, I guess.
give you the AI ones.
Yeah, the AI ones are very familiar. Yeah, but like when it comes to mindfulness and personal development, that sort of thing, I guess I'm living in my own little bubble. So yeah, please, that's good. It's good.
I was wondering why you didn't like my posts for a while. I'm gonna go
Yeah.
and DM them to you. This is about burnout. This is about like creative problem solving. But
Mhm.
no, but I think it just comes down to the fact that when you just look inwards and you just like focus on what you just need to do, there's like in the coaching world that this super popular example where you look at the post-it note and you have it
Mhm.
right in front of your face and it's like, can you read this? And you're like, of course not. And
Mhm.
as we step back, you can. And that's exactly what happens when you give yourself that reading space or when you get someone else to look at the problem because you would get a different perspective on it. That's what
Mhm.
I love brainstorming sessions with strangers.
Mhm.
Sometimes I see someone that writes about a topic I like, and I'm like, hey, do you want to hop on a call and like chat about this? Because I've been trying to solve for that. And two brains are better than one. Um, and I think your life experience gives you a lot of gifts to be able to share with others and with yourself, of course. You use them. Um, how do you feel like this experience that you've lived, at least with like this current company that you're respectively working for, has equipped you for the challenges to come? Because, oh boy, we know there are plenty.
Mhm.
What do you feel the most confident about?
Honestly, personally, I guess I'll start. I think um, one of the most rewarding aspects of entrepreneurship is that when you work with people and they resonate with your vision or your idea or your project, I think that's one of the most amazing feelings, right? Because you're like, okay, so first of all, I'm not crazy, so that's good to know. I know what I'm talking about, and then you're like, other people are interested in helping me make this happen, right? And so I think this part of thing, and kind of being quote unquote responsible for the outcomes of what a team produces and how that team operates and who that team is made up of, which is not something that I used to be responsible of in my previous jobs before becoming an entrepreneur. Basically, I think that's really a key factor that helped me personally. Just first of all, understand people more, be more receptive, be more understanding, but also kind of find as you know, sometimes as an entrepreneur, what I like to say is you have to find the joy in the little moments, little wins, you know. Just when another team member resonates with the idea, when you onboard someone new, then you know that's already a win in and of itself, because that idea that was in your head for a while, you made it out into the real world. And not only that, but you also convinced another human being that it's worth doing and it's worth spending that time on. And so I think that's a huge thing that only becomes really clear when you do that, right? So I think that's the thing that I think, on top of everything else, obviously, but I would highlight that one as being really like, uh, hopefully prepare me for the next milestones and the next challenges, right? Because there's always something new that comes up, right? So
Thanks. Thanks so much for sharing.
I
And
think from my sorry, I'll jump in, Jordan, while you think of through. So my business started as a side hustle. So I was working in a different business when we started the business. So I think the journey I've learned is you can start things as a side hustle and they can become bigger than you thought. And with that, to always think bigger. I think when we start out, we always keep it safe. And I've definitely learned to take the risks and think bigger. So side hustles do become something big.
Mm.
Yeah, I think, with Takara, there's going to be some big challenges for sure. We're growing fast. We're taking on some of the most complex problems that I have ever seen. And what gives me great confidence is having a great team around me, right? My co-founders and the people that I know are just fantastic, right? So it's knowing that I'm not doing it on my own. With my last business, it was me, and like I did way too much stuff, and then I had a team that did various bits and pieces, but I had architected a company which was kind of impossible to run without me, which is not the way it should be. Like if you die, or something like that, it shouldn't end. Right? It should continue on. That's what it should be, right? It should be like almost a self-autonomous thing where people can pick up the slack. So, with Takara, I think that's what gives me the most confidence about solving some of the hardest problems, for me, and just being able to love what I do and get stuck into problems and do what I do best, which is problem solving. And I just happen to do that in the space of AI and ML. I think, just makes me feel good about it. And it means that I can keep doing it for as long as possible.
Yes, and we hope so. I really genuinely hope that you guys can keep doing something that is fulfilling, whatever how it needs to evolve, but at least so long as you keep being the resilient soul that you are, keep being inspiring, keep giving hope to others as much as you inspire yourself in the process. Connect, put people first, and I think it's been super useful for the audience. Thank you so much for sharing. For everyone, don't forget you can reach out to our speakers on LinkedIn find them, connect with them, follow them. They are super happy to help. They are here, so
Your thumb vanished.
I'm throwing you under the bus now. You're gonna be like piling up with requests in the DMs. But please do reach out and find any synergies that you can find. Thank you so much, guys. I'm gonna end the stream, and if there's any question that pops in, leave it in the comment, guys, and we will get